Hi guys, welcome to another Rants video. Today I'm actually talking about a book series instead of a movie. I know, right? It's been a little while, and I haven't had a whole lot of opportunity, like new things, content to read. And so I recently started, or didn't start, I recently read Beyonders by Brandon Mull, which if you watched my Brandon Mull video, you know is one of, like, the only series from him that I hadn't read. And I love it so much. Like, if I had to pick a, like, top 3 book series, it would probably be, in no particular order, Beyonders, Five Kingdoms, Fablehaven, Dragonwatch, because I count them as the same series. But all Brandon Mull. Like, Brandon Mull has topped my favorite books list because it's so good. Like, the worlds he creates, the characters he creates, these magic systems that he brings in, they're so great. And on top of that, the stories are awesome. The world's so cool. It's another dimension, essentially. So the main characters are obviously from our world, so that they can come to this world and be thrown into this and learn all the things about the world, so that it gives them an opportunity to info dump in a helpful way. Because if you start with natives to the world, they should know all these things, and so finding a way to bring in this information that the reader should know is a bit harder, because there's no, like, opportunity or a good way to say, hey, this is an info dump and it's okay because I'm teaching the character as well as the reader. So that's is actually a very good way for him to do it. So yes, main characters from our world come into this new world called Lyrian, and my goodness, it's definitely one of the most unique versions of gateway magic that I've seen, because, you know, people get through, like, magical tree arch or a cave or something like that. No, Jason gets swallowed by a hippopotamus. Yeah, he hears music. He hears music and he's like, okay, where the heck is that coming from? And he realizes it's coming from inside this hippo, because he works at the zoo. It's coming from inside this hippo. And he's like, what the heck? So obviously leans too far over the edge, falls into the water, gets swallowed by a hippo, and ends up in a rotten tree. I will admit, I tried to read Beyonders one time, like a couple of years ago, and I got through the first chapter, and the prologue in the first chapter where he was swallowed by a hippo. And I didn't make it further than that. Like, I wasn't enthralled enough to continue the story, and so it ended up being due, because I got it from the library, and so it ended up being due, and so I had to send it back to the library. And so I never finished it. I never got past the first chapter, and part of it was because I was so taken aback by the fact that this kid was transported to another world through a hippo that it really just, like, caught me off guard and made me go, is the rest of the book gonna be like this? Because it really is a very weird way to travel through worlds. But thank goodness I saw, like, what little fan art there is out there for this fandom, and realized that it crosses over with Five Kingdoms when we meet Drake and Farron in the afterlife of Necronum, and it got me interested and motivated to get past the first chapter of book 1, and I love it so much. So much. It's, oh man, it's honestly, like, all of his books have very unique storylines. Beyonders feels a little bit like sort of a combination between Five Kingdoms and Fablehaven, because they're fighting the one bad guy like we see in Five Kingdoms, but it's more direct and like almost more quest driven, I guess, than like Fablehaven. Five Kingdoms, I know it's sort of quest driven, but at the same time they're kind of just wandering, hoping to they have a goal, but they don't really have a destination. Whereas in Beyonders, it's more planned out, I guess. Like they all, for the most part, know where they're going for 90% of the stories. They're like, they know where they're going, they have a destination. Once they get to that destination, they're given the next destination, and it's like specific destinations, not just go to this city and look around until you find what you're looking for, which is kind of what happens with Five Kingdoms. And so it's sort of the plot of Five Kingdoms where they're trying to defeat this tyrannical dictator, but it has the more solid, we know where we're going, the journey is set kind of feel like Fablehaven has. And so it's great. It's great. Maldor is such a douche. Like, he's one of the most evil villains we've had, because in Five Kingdoms they're going against whatever Mira's dad's Stafford Pemberton, the king of the High Shaper, of the Five Kingdoms. And he ends up not exactly being a bad guy. He just got misled. And then the real villain is someone else. And I guess he's technically evil. He's trying to conquer the world. But, different. The villain that you think it is throughout pretty much the entire series isn't actually a bad dude. In Fablehaven, they're straight up demons, but that's not who they're fighting the whole time. And the Sphinx is very much just I'm doing this to save the world. I'm doing this to save the world. I am overestimating my own abilities. And whereas this guy, he's just straight up evil, and he embraces it, and he knows that, and he's just power hungry and trying to conquer all of Lyrien. So they come into the middle of a war. Well, war. It's very much a quiet war, except in Kadara. But they come into the middle of this land that is at the brink of being completely taken over by this tyrannical dictator, at the edge of ushering in this age of darkness. And as a wizard, as Maldor is, he could reign for centuries. And so we have this tiny rebellion. They just, by chance and through different things, different coincidences and mistakes and whatever else, they end up with the Blind King, who is actually Goldoran, the heir of Trensicourt, which is probably, from the sound of it, the big noble city, sort of the capital of Lyrien, but not, since it doesn't actually have a capital, but probably the biggest, big main city of Lyrien, where a lot of the nobles stay, and get sent on a mission to find a magical word that is capable of just destroying Maldor. If you say it in his presence, he just dies. He I don't know, ceases to exist, whatever, but it destroys them if you say it in his presence. And that itself is a very cool, very unique storyline. And they're going through this, and me going into this going, okay, so their quest, they're gonna go find the word. This is gonna take all 3 books. They're gonna have to travel all over the place, find the word, and then at the end of the 3rd book, they're gonna get into Maldor's presence, say it, and he's gonna be dead. That is not at all what happened. One, I get my My trust issues come from Brandon Mull. I'm sorry, you are my favorite author, but what the heck? Why are there so many betrayals? Why must we cannot trust anyone in any of your series. I don't trust really anyone in his books until I get firm, concrete evidence that I can. And unless they are the main character, or I have concrete evidence that they will not betray them ever, that they are actually on the hero's side, I do not trust anyone. Because I can't. Because everyone is a traitor in his books. I let my guard down because they meet Farron in this. Farron is a displacer. Displacers are so cool. They can just detach and reattach their body parts at will, and it's so great. And I love it. We meet Farron. I'm just like, oh, cool. I remember Farron. He's the guy from the Echolands with that Cole meets that helps him. That is that they found in this Hall of Heroes. And I let my guard down. And I paid for it. Oh my gosh. Because it's revealed all the displacers work for Maldor. They're all his spies. It's just their entire species is Maldor spies. And I just, what? I thought he was supposed to be an ally. What the heck? What the heck? I let my guard down once and it just gets ripped right down again. It's just, it's the first time I have truly felt one of his betrayals in a while, because I actually, for a second there, let myself trust Farron. And I was like, no! But Farron is actually a very interesting character because he eventually has a redemption arc, but throughout the whole thing he's very open about the fact that he lived as a spy his entire life. He doesn't really know how to live, how to think any other way. And so throughout this entire thing, he's going, I'm constantly battling whether I'm going to turn on you or not. I honestly don't know sometimes. And I'm seeing all these opportunities to betray you, and I'm seeing all these ways that I could betray you, but the only reason that I haven't yet is because I betrayed Maldor for a friend. Because he befriends Jason and truly does become his friend, even though he betrays them. It's like, this is what I do, this is what I am, but I truly do like you, and I do view you as a friend. And so he saves Jason later on, and so he has a fine. Maldor finds out about it. He gets labeled a traitor and is now on the run. And so he's sitting there going, I see all these opportunities, but I haven't gone to Maldor because there's no making up what I did. I released one of his prisoners. I can't make up for that. But just right down to the end, to his death, he is fighting this back and forth of, I see all these opportunities. I have ways to betray you. I've been loyal to Maldor my entire life. And just seeing if his habits will defeat his newfound loyalty for his friends. And it's so great. It's so great. Drake is great too. They find him at the Eternal Feast, which is where Maldor sends his most threatening enemies, so that they grow into complacency and they feel secure and safe, and they give up on attacking him. And they find Drake there. He's a seed man. Seed people are great. They literally have what is called an Amar Kabal in the back of their neck. It's just a seed that houses essentially houses their soul. So when they die, it falls out. If you plant it, they grow back, and it's so great. They have ceremonial death. So for the first time, it's like a child grows up to the age of they're in their prime. So then they have ceremonial death. They are replanted and they grow back, and so then that is the age that they grow back as every time that they die. And it's I love the species in this, all of the different, they're so great. We have manglers who are just armored beasts covered in blades, the Toravors, which are also not native to Lyrian, but they're enslaved by the Emperor, and they're just brutal. They're way scarier than the Toravors in the Five Kingdoms because they actually do stuff, and there's like 20 of them, and there's probably more than 20, but there's so many of them, and they're used as assassins. And gosh, it's so good. And literally, instead of looking like people, they just look like silhouettes. They're pitch black. The light does not reflect off of them. They're just blackness. They are a void. And it's so cool. I don't remember what are the other like main species. Those are the main ones. And then there's humans, obviously. There's, oh crap. The ones that age really quickly but are really good fighters. They have like 2-year lifespan. They have a 2-year lifespan. They age super quickly. I cannot remember what they're called. And I currently don't have any of the books to actually look it up. But they're super cool. Because we have some of them along with them on this journey, and then you get to, as they separate and come back together, you get to see how they age and how it's so cool. Brandon, how are you so creative? I don't understand. I'm jealous. But yes, beyond the species, beyond the characters, the world itself is so cool. There's a place called the White Lake, which is literally like the cornstarch stuff that you would make for science class, where you squeeze it and it hardens and it's really hard, and then you let go of it and it just like flows out of your hand almost like liquid. The lake is literally that. It's so cool. They have to get to an island in the center of it, but it's like you can't take it slow, you can't swim through it because it's just gonna be like liquid, and you're gonna sink and you're gonna die because you can't get out of that, because when you resist, it hardens. And so they have to full sprint across this lake that is also searing hot. Like, if it were an actual liquid, it would be boiling. But it's not, so it's just flat and it's scorching, and you have to full sprint across this to get to an island to find a syllable of the word, and it's so cool. The White Lake is so cool. We also have a Barra, which is a forsaken kingdom where there is straight up a zombie plague, essentially, but it's goma worms that infest you, drink all of your blood, and then take over your body. It's so cool. Gosh. There's the marshland, the Sunken Lands, which used to be a kingdom, but a wizard, because of rivalries or whatever and things, he just lashes out, sinks the whole thing into a swamp. So this entire portion of the kingdom gets sunken into marshland full of poisonous, dangerous creatures, and it's so good. There's also the lands that Jason and his companions have to cross in order to find a prophecy to help in the final battle. That's just like geysers. And then there's it's I'm trying to remember. Was it ice? I don't think it was ice. It was just like very thin ground. I feel like it was sort of like a salt flat-ish. And they're crossing this, so it's just this super thin layer of earth covered in water over, like, I'm pretty sure it's boiling water. At this point, it's like all of this is boiling water because the rest of the land that they just crossed is full of geysers. So they're crossing this, and if they take a wrong step, they will crack the ground, fall through, and get boiled alive. It's so cool. It's so great. It's so freaking great. Oh man, I love the world so much. We also have the jungles that we get a little bit of between books 2 and 3. We have the mountains where the seed people live. There's a desert somewhere in there that we don't actually get to go to. But just, it's so good. Oh, we also have the Wanderer, who's a shapeshifter. There's only one of his kind, but it's so, he's cool. Gosh, Felrook, which is Maldor's fortress, is built into a mountain surrounded by a lake, so it's impassable. And on top of that, they're in a valley, so he's kind of surrounded by mountains. And he's got outposts around on the mountain range to take out anyone else. And the only way to it is ferrying across the lake and then taking a single winding path up to Felrook. And it's just, yeah, this is impassable. This is not something that you can, this is an undefeatable fortress. And yet that is what they have to fight in order to stop Maldor. So not only is this like an uninvadable fortress, it's the home of the last wizard in Lyrian. So no one can combat him. He has magical powers. Magic in this is called Adamic. It's so cool. You speak words. You basically just speak another language of Lyrian, which is sort of the native tongue, I guess. And they have some power and influence over things. And with enough willpower, you can make Adamic commands, which allow you to light fires, move objects, control people if you're strong enough, and all of that. And it's magic systems. His magic system is great. And it's very much a hard magic system in this. In Five Kingdoms, it's a little more soft. He explains how they work, but he doesn't like the effects of the magic system and less of how they work. So it's very much a softer magic system. And he does that a little bit with Fairykind and Shadow Tremors in Fablehaven as well. This one is very much a hard set magic system. We don't get to know any of the words that they speak. We just say, she says the Adamic word for this. But we get way more into how it works and the limits of it and the consequences of it. And it's very much more structured than the other magic systems that he has brought up. And it's great. All his magic systems are great. This one is just more structured, and it's fun to see more of the mechanics of the magic systems that he created. Excuse me. But yes, magic system is great. His magic systems are always great. His worlds are always great. His creatures that he creates are always great. And his characters are always awesome. Jason is very fun. He's very fun. He's very different from Cole. Cole is a lot of, I'm not afraid of the danger, I'm gonna go into this danger, and is more ready for it, and seems to be, personality-wise, isn't afraid of a whole lot of things. Is very brave about a lot of things, but, And then Jason is a bit more timid about it, and a lot more uncertain. Cole has this unique ability, so he sees more his part that he would play in this. He questions whether, because he hears from an unreliable source that he is fundamental to the cause of the rebels in the Five Kingdoms. So he doubts that because he doubts the source. But for Jason, he hears from a reliable source that he is integral to this, and that he needs to be here, and that he was called here for a reason. But he's very much doubts. He's like, what is this reason? Why am I here? What purpose could I possibly serve? I am not the best fighter. I don't have any powers of Adamic. I'm just a kid. And him struggling through that, especially through the last book too, is very good, fun to see, and how he progresses, and you see him kind of take on a leader role and discover more of the impact that he has had on all of the different characters throughout this. It's like all of these rebels that a lot of the main characters that we meet, it's like he has had an impact on some of them. That is he is the reason that they are there and with the rebels, and some of them he saved and whatever else. It's like you start, because they have a whole scene where he's questioning it. Someone else, like Drake, will tell him, I wouldn't be here without you, and you see that, and you realize Farron wouldn't really be here without Jason, and he gets a letter from a seer who is dead. So the seer, thousands of years before he's even there, writes a prophecy and a letter to Jason. So yeah, he finds it and just lays out excuse me, lays out, it's like, no, you are supposed to be here. You are here for a reason. You being here is the only path that me and another oracle, seer, whatever, saw to bring, that could possibly bring Maldor's downfall. And it's so great. I love Jason. And then it's Rachel. Rachel, she is similar in the, oh, I'm here by accident, but I'm supposed to be here. She becomes she realizes she's an Adamic adept. She can use the words. She's very good. She's a quick learner. She is the only one capable of potentially rivaling Maldor. And so her purpose there is very clear. And she does embrace it a bit. She does embrace it more. And goes, okay, this is why I'm here. I'm going to learn what I can. I'm going to run away from the Torvors. This is why I'm here. I'm going to do this job. But at the same time, she is also way more hard-pressed to get home. Because we have Jason who's like, yeah, I'm essentially an only child. All my siblings are older than me. But my parents know, like, my parents, I'm not an only child. They raised my older siblings. And so they don't really care. This, like, I am the youngest, but I feel like I'm an only child. My parents are more interested in what my older siblings have interests in. So he's not exactly close to his family. And so he's less motivated to get home. And yet he doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing in Lyrian. And then Rachel knows exactly why she's there. She realizes her purpose, but she is way more driven to get home because she is an only child and is very close to her parents. And I will say, I love the homeschooler representation. Like, nobody in books is homeschooled. Have you noticed that? Nobody. There are parts of the stories that either take place in school, if it's in our world, like even fantasy, like they're taking lessons or something from someone. They're all in some sort of school. No one is homeschooled. There is no homeschooler representation in any book that I have read. Until now, Rachel is a homeschooler. She is fantastic. I love her. Seeing her lifestyle as a homeschooler, she explains it, like traveling and whatever else, being able to be on her schedule, do school while she's traveling, whatever else. It's great. I love it. In case you haven't guessed at this point, I love the homeschooler representation because I am a homeschooler, graduated all the way through, graduated from homeschool. I love that she is representing homeschoolers. It's great. It's fantastic. Bring more of that. Even my stories that I write, I put them in settings where they're in school, or they're in a world where school is not exactly a thing. They just sort of make their way. And I don't even represent homeschoolers, which I am ashamed of myself for. But yes, homeschooler representation is fantastic. I love it. Yes, the characters are great. Galoran is he's such an awesome, like, Papa Bear to Rachel. It's so good. They can speak telepathically, so he's, like, constantly checking in on her, and they're constantly having conversations, and they're so close, and I love it. Also, Galoran's actual daughter, Corinne, she's kind of adorable. She is kind of adorable, but also a force to be reckoned with, because she was entrusted with a portion of the magical word and then sent off for her own safety because Galoran was going after the word. Well, actually, her aunt was entrusted with part of the word. She's sent off to her aunt because Galoran's getting in trouble because he's going after the word. And so then her aunt dies, she learns the word, but she spent her pretty much her entire childhood training to fight with a sword. And so she is a force to be reckoned with, but she's so adorable and she's so innocent because she doesn't really know anything about the world because she's been in a swamp her whole life. She has lived in the sunken lands her whole childhood. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Also, her and Jason are adorable as well. They're so adorable. Because Jason is so clearly into her. and she honestly, it's the love is she's into him. And just their interactions are so awkward and cute. It's adorable. I can't. And then there's hints of Jason's daughter from the seer. And that from Darian the Seer, where he gets the prophecy and the information about the final battle from. And I'm just going, the minute I heard that, it's like, 1, you're gonna have a daughter. Cool. 2, it's definitely Corinne's daughter. It's totally Corinne's daughter. Speaking of their daughter, I need a sequel series. I need a sequel series with their daughter. Like, the setup is insane. Like, they reference it, like, if your daughter ever needs me, I have prophecies for her in this room that she will find. And the setup is so good. He could, if you have the right plot, all you need is essentially a big bed for the series, or even just one book. But I want a sequel to show where Rachel and Jason and Corinne and so are at after all this. What kind of a family dynamic Corinne, Jason, and their daughter have. And I want to see what happens with that. I need to know what Darian the Seer is referring to when she needs help, because he's got to be referring to something. He sees possible futures where she's going to need it. Oh, I need a sequel book or a sequel series where they address this, because Brandon, you are not allowed to make these implications and leave this setup and not do something with it. I need more. I need more of Lyrian. I need more of Jason and Rachel. I need their daughter. I need this. Start a petition in the comments. Who else wants a sequel series to Beyonders that centers around Jason and Corinne's daughter? I'm gonna put a little comment in there, and you guys like it or comment or whatever if you guys agree with me, because I need this. Someone tag Brandon Mull so you can see how many people want this. Oh man. So yes, characters, world, the species, everything. So great. And on top of that, we have the plot. I mentioned how them finding the word Danaka, how I thought it was going to be initially when I started reading the books. I thought they would take the entire trilogy to figure it out and then take out Maldor that way. Nope! This is the spoilers ahead. I know I spoiled a little bit in this, but the rest of this I'm spoiling about the plot. So, just a warning. They find the entire word in the first book. They get in front, Jason learns it, gets in front of Maldor, says it, nothing happens. It turns out the word is a fraud meant for another wizard. And they have been on the fool's errand this whole time. Jason escapes within prison with Farron's help, escapes back to our world with Rachel and everyone left behind, and goes, crap, my friends are still back there. Rachel is still back there. The word is a fraud and no one knows about this. He spends like 3 months in our world trying to figure out how to get home. And this whole time he has one of Farron's hands because he was fighting so hard not to leave. Eventually gets back the same way he got there the first time, through a hippo. And it's great. He has the chance to get out scot-free, no consequences. He can just live his life, and he chooses not to. He chooses to go back for Rachel, to go back for the rebellion, because they need to know this is a fake word. So good. Gets back, finds everybody, reveals that, then they're like, oh crap, we need a new strategy. So then they go to a prophetess in the jungle to figure out, is there any chance of us being able to defeat Maldor? Because they're trying to rally troops. They're like, there's no chance. But if this prophetess can prove that there is any kind of chance, we will support you. And so it's their whole journey in the second book. They're just trying to build this rebellion. They're journeying through to get to this prophetess to figure out if there's a chance. So it's a little bit slower than the first and the third book, which usually happens with the middle book, but it's still great. And then the third one is they get the prophecy. There is a small chance they might be able to defeat Maldor. Split up, do their separate quests. One looking for a prophecy that has, looking for information for Darian the Seer to find information that would change the tide of the war, and Galorn and Rachel off to gather the forces and march on Felrook. So good. It's so good because never expected the ending with the information that Jason gets, not expecting it at all. He sets it up. Brandon sets it up so well, though. He has that underlying knowledge. It's like, okay, this is laid out as general knowledge that you just, that you could know about this, because there's a mineral called Urantium that explodes if exposed to water or air. The mining of this mineral was shut down thousands of years ago because they reached a vein of Urantium that was too big to mine. The mines and the mountain that the Urantium came from has been lost for thousands of years. So that's just general knowledge that you have throughout the series. It's like, okay, whatever, you kind of pass it, it's like, okay, cool, but you set it aside as you get more into the story, and you're like, okay, whatever, it's not as important, I need to focus on this stuff. It turns out it's very important. They give you the name of the mountain and everything. It's like, okay, turns out this is very important because Felrook is built on that mountain. A mountain full of Urantium, which could blow up if it ever came into contact with air or water. Just the whole mountain would go up. I never even saw it coming. Mind blown. It's insane. It's insane. And so flippin' good. They just blow up an entire... They get all their forces out, blow up the mountain, blow up Felric, blow up all of his forces. Like, the entire valley is just taken out. And it's beautiful. It's so great. It's so great. Okay, talking about the ending. We're to the ending. Because if you've read Brandon Mull books, you've noticed he's very good at making unsatisfying endings. Like, the endings are so great, but they're also so unsatisfying. Five Kingdoms, such a great ending. They go through the portal, they get home permanently, but they eventually lose all their memories in Five Kingdoms. Great ending. Super unsatisfying. It's like, oh, they just don't remember anything. That's super sad. I thought that one was a lot hard to swallow. Nothing prepared me for this. Nothing prepared me. One, for the amount of people that die in the last book of Beyonders, but two, for the ending. First of all, it's established when Jason goes back to Argold and comes back and then returns to Lyrian. You remember everything. You remember everything that happened in Lyrian when you return to Earth. So, yeah, and it seems like, for the most part, if you time it right, the same amount of time passes when you go back to Earth. There's weird timey-wimey stuff if you choose the wrong day to go back, and you could end up in the past or the future. But if you go back on the right day, about the same amount of time that has passed in Lyrian will have passed on Earth. Okay. That's how the portal works. Now, at the end of book 2, Rachel asks the prophetess, is there any chance of me to get home? And she goes, there's one day where the timelines of Earth and Lyrian will align for the most part, and you will end up back in your own time period. It's 5 years from now. You will have to stay in Lyrian for 5 years, if you survive the battle, obviously, but for 5 years before you can go back into your own time period. Otherwise, it's all uncertain, and you could end up anywhere in time. So, they live in Lyrian 5 years after the final battle with Maldor. 5 flippin' years, long enough to build a life there. And then, because of a warning given to Jason back when he found Darien Seer, they know that someone has to leave Lyrian and someone has to stay. So they're getting separated. And it's a little bit predictable, but still. Rachel leaves to go back with her parents 5 years after her disappearance, with plenty of pictures and evidence and whatever to hopefully explain what actually happened to her. She also takes a note for Jason's parents, because Jason has decided, since Rachel's leaving, he has to stay, but he's decided he's probably never going back to her. What is this ending? What is this ending? It's so great. It's part of the reason that I want a sequel series with Jason and Corinne's daughter, because are you kidding me? That is the most unsatisfying ending I have ever seen in my life. It's so unsatisfying, but it's so good. Gosh, it makes me want more. It makes me want so much more. I want to know what happens. I want to know what goes on with Lyrian. I want to know if Rachel ever comes back. I can't. I literally can't do it. It's amazing, but it's... Man. So yeah, Beyonders is amazing. I absolutely love it. It has definitely reached my top 3 along with all the other Brandon Mull series that I have read. God, I'm sorry if I spoiled it, if you watched it all the way through and I spoiled everything, but like, I can't not just rant and go off and explain all these intricate details that I absolutely love because it's so good. So if you haven't read Beyonders or any other Brandon Mull book, read them, please. They're so freaking good. He is an amazing author. Absolutely love him. Oh, man. And if you have read Beyonders or any of Brandon Mull's other books, nerd out with me in the comments. There are such small fandoms. I need to find my people in these fandoms because they're so small, but the books are so good. They deserve so much better. They deserve so much bigger fandoms. But I also love the small fandoms because they're so wholesome when they're small. Anyway, yes, those are my thoughts on Beyonders. It was absolutely amazing. I love it so much. But drop your recommendations and your thoughts in the comments. I will put a little petition thing in there for a sequel series to Beyonders. Feel free to like and comment on that if you agree with me. I'll see you all next time.